As everyone is aware, we had this press conference scheduled for Friday, but we lost one of our most influential, if not other than Father Soren, maybe, important men of the 20th century, and Father Hesburgh. I think that, there are many, many stories and many significant parts of his life that we could sit here and chronicle. I think one of the things that touched me the most was when he blessed that cross right over there for our team room that we display here every day, and find it to be extremely important to us being here at Notre Dame, one of the great, if not greatest, Catholic institutions, and I know that was his mission, and it's borne out every day with that cross. Leader in so many ways, and we'll honor him and memorialize him this week. So I'm sure everybody understands that. His legacy here is certainly unmatched. We're talking football, and certainly pales in comparison to what he's accomplished, but we will nevertheless get to the things that we want to talk about relative to our football program. And I will say that 2015 has been one of great momentum for us. It began in December, with a great win over a perennial SEC power in LSU, an exciting last-second win in December, and continued in January when we had two of our elite players forego the NFL and come back here to finish their education and want to be part of pursuit of a national championship in Sheldon Day and Ronnie Stanley. February, we signed what many people talked about as one of the top classes in the country. The leading months in December, January, and February, there's a lot of momentum leading into 2015. We've had great workouts, which are more behind the scenes. But as we lead into March, I'm announcing today what I consider to be collectively the most, and I use these words to define the staff that we've put together. I consider it to be the most committed, cohesive, experienced, and probably brightest coaching staff that I've put together in my career. And obviously, I'm excited about the continuity that we still have in place on our staff, but the new pieces continue that momentum that I've talked about, starting with our bowl win in December. So leading into March, in a couple of weeks, we'll begin our spring ball and the challenges and the competition of spring ball, which will lead us into recruiting in May, and then obviously our summer workouts and right into the season. When we talk about committed, I think you look immediately to the staff members that I brought on board that have a connection to Notre Dame. Committed because they chose Notre Dame in their undergraduate career and wanted so badly to come back. And, it's interesting in the interviewing process, talking to Todd Light and Autry Denson and Ron Paulus, and, in particular, those guys, even Maurice Crum, they get here and they're student athletes and, they're so focused on their degree and, how hard it is to get a degree and play football, and they want to move on, and then they work so hard to get back here. And they're so committed to the principles and the ideas of Notre Dame and towards winning a national championship. So I think when you talk about committed, you talk about those that walked those steps as a student athlete here at Notre Dame and are now in a position to, from a different perspective, coach and teach here and help lead us to a national championship. When we talk about cohesiveness, we talk about those that have worked with me before and have worked with other staff members. You know, I'd like to point to Keith Gilmore. You know, Keith has been with me at Grand Valley State, Central Michigan, Cincinnati. He played college football with Brian Van Gorder and Paul Longo. So there's great cohesiveness there. And we know Keith very well. He's experienced. He's got great experience in the collegiate level as a coach, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a recruiter. And he brings that great cohesiveness to our staff as well. You know, I think when you talk about, you know, bright and you know, somebody that brings a lot of ideas, Mike Sanford, you know, when we're looking at bringing in the best and the brightest, we looked all over the country for that person that would fit into what we wanted to do offensively, coach the quarterback, somebody that could come in and coordinate the run and pass game together. And Mike Sanford was clearly a cut above everybody that we looked at. And so, you know, using those words that I did in terms of committed, cohesive, experienced, and brightest, those are our new hires as it relates to our staff. And then, you know, Donovan Raiola, who was under Harry Hiestan's tutelage, comes in as a graduate assistant. You know, there's great familiarity there and cohesiveness that we really like. Maurice Crum, obviously, somebody that knows Notre Dame, and again, going back to committed and understanding Notre Dame, another great addition to our staff. And then we made some moves within the staff to strengthen it and to bolster the day-to-day operations. Moving Mike Elston to the recruiting coordinator position is going to strengthen our operations on a day-to-day basis. Mike brings an attention to detail, a vision for what it takes to communicate to today's kids out there that are being recruited, whether it be through the social media aspects or simply finding the right buttons to push when it comes to recruiting. Great recruiters today have to have something to recruit to, first and foremost, but they also have to be able to connect. And Mike has done a great job since he's been here. He's arguably been our best recruiter day in and day out. And if you just look at our roster, it's proven that to be the case. He was my recruiting coordinator at Cincinnati. Did a terrific job there. You just need to look at the guys that are in the NFL that we recruited at Cincinnati when Mike was our recruiting coordinator there, and he'll do a great job for us as our recruiting coordinator, and we're moving him into the linebacker position on the staff as well. We think that really bolsters and strengthens our staff as Keith Gilmore goes to his natural position at coaching the defensive line. Obviously, Todd Light on the defensive side of the ball will coach the defensive backs, the corners and the safeties. You know, we love the skill set that he brings. In particular, we were looking for somebody that was experienced in coaching man-to-man techniques and really has a strong background and skill set there. You know, when we're talking about that defensive structure and what Coach Van Gorder was looking for, we really think we hit a home run in putting the defensive staff together. Coach Elliott, who was coaching on the field, is now moved into a very important position off the field. And his position in particular will be one that will assist in all facets of the program, but with a heavy detail towards things that I need accomplished on a day-to-day basis to help our football program. It will be a special assistant and special projects, and I could give you 10 of them right now, but they are really pertinent to the day-to-day operations within the football program, everything from researching some of the current trends in option football, to analytics, to roster management, to our bridge program in the summer, all of the things on a day-to-day basis that can help and assist me on a day-to-day basis so we can be more detailed, more organized on a day-to-day basis, as well as leaning heavily on him and his experience in game day and game week preparation. We'll have another set of eyes relative to game management, and he'll be able to assist in helping in all facets of game day operations as well. So, really lucky and fortunate that we're able to have Coach Elliott and his experience in that role and assisting our football program accordingly. I talked about Ron Paulus. Ron coming back to Notre Dame. Obviously, as a heralded student athlete coming in here and playing here at Notre Dame is one thing, but being somebody that can build relationships was the most important thing for the Director of Player Services. He needs to have that ability, and Ron has demonstrated, in one of his great strengths is his ability to forge relationships with student athletes, and because he's been in their shoes. But it's one thing to be in their shoes, but you still have to have the ability to connect with student athletes, and that's what has impressed me with Ron, is his ability to connect with student athletes, and that's why he'll be able to really do a great job of helping and assisting our student athletes on a day-to-day basis, academically, athletically, going through the ups and downs of a long season. It's more brain power. He can't coach on the field, but he certainly has a lot of experience that he can lend as it relates to the game of football, the quarterback position. And although he's not necessarily counted as one of the coaches by NCAA rules, make no mistake about it, he is a valuable asset as it relates to the game of football as well, and his relationships that he can build with our student athletes. So really fortunate and excited to have Ron back here at Notre Dame as well. As we look at the formation of the offensive side of the ball, Mike Denbrock now takes on a new role as the associate head football coach, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. Mike is going to oversee the organization of the offense, and in particular, he's going to be installing, implementing, and putting together the entire offense, and that will be his responsibility, where Mike Sanford will coordinate the run and pass game, through daily practice and game plan preparation. So, they're working together collaboratively. It's a great room with Scott Booker, still with our tight ends, working with special teams, and Autry Denson with the running backs. But the collaborative approach to it, no egos, best idea wins is really the philosophy that we have really used as our mantra for the offensive side of the ball. Again, I think when you're talking about what we want to achieve here, everybody on this staff has made a commitment that the title that they want the most is a national title. They are certainly more interested in the title that goes with national champ than the title that goes next to their name. And that's why I'm so excited about the staff that we have and the staff that we've put together here. And I can't tell you how important it is for Coach Denbrock and his role, and how important it is for him to oversee our offense and the development of that, and then to have somebody like Mike Sanford with obviously the energy that he brings, the ideas that he brings to the room, and the day-to-day responsibilities that they have, and the collaboration necessary, where there are no big egos, but just one thought, and that is best ideas and whatever it takes to be successful. And you can only do that with you know, the right kind of guys, and we've got them on our staff. You know, moving to the rest of the offense and talking about Autry Denson, let me talk about Autry a little bit more. You know, Autry, you know, we had a number of candidates for this position, great candidates throughout the country. I will tell you that, you know, we had no shortage of some of the best in the country. And Autry came up immediately, and because of his background here as the all-time leading rusher, and quite frankly, his background as a Notre Dame student athlete gave him a chance at an interview. But I really didn't think I was going to hire him, to be quite honest with you, until he interviewed. And he blew me away in the interview. His attention to detail at the running back position, techniques, how he was teaching the running backs, the depth of knowledge at the position, both in the run game and the pass game. His philosophy matched mine in terms of development of the student athlete, both on and off the field. And then as we talked about recruiting, how he was going to go about that challenge of recruiting, we had a long list of guys that we had ready to interview, and we called them up and said that we'd found our running back coach in Autry Denson. So we feel lucky to have him, and excited to welcome him here to Notre Dame. And you know, I know our players are excited about him, and we're excited about having him on the staff as well. I talked about Mike Sanford. I want to talk a little bit more about Mike. As you know, he comes to us from Boise State, which is his alma mater, as the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach here. You know, he's certainly taking over a position where there'll be a lot of scrutiny. Whether it was this year or any other year, there's a great amount of scrutiny on the quarterback position. And Mike understands that. He's welcomes that challenge, and you know, really love his attention to detail, his ease of communication. In other words, he's very easy to talk to. The players feel very comfortable with him, and it's easy for him to get his point across on a day-to-day basis. Just love his ability to communicate. He's an effective communicator on a day-to-day basis, and I think he's going to be able to do great things with our quarterback position and develop our quarterbacks on a day-to-day basis. You know, leaving Boise State was not easy when it's your alma mater, but coming here, there is obviously some history here, and that was that he was probably one of the most underrated sophomore quarterbacks at Penn High School. That's a bit of a joke. But he did play a couple years here at Penn High School. His dad obviously was a coordinator here under Bob Davie, so he's familiar with South Bend. But taking on the challenges as the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach was one that he was excited about, and I'm certainly excited about his, you know, just his mindset in terms of what he wants to accomplish, and obviously it's the same thing that I just mentioned, win a national championship. And you know, we got a chance to spend a lot of time together, and it was pretty clear to me that we had found the best guy for this position in the country. He'll do a great job recruiting for us as well. He's got a great background as a former recruiting coordinator at Stanford, and he'll hit the ground running as it relates to recruiting, not only the quarterback position, but all positions across the country. So extremely excited about Mike Sanford as a offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. As I mentioned, you know, again, a number of exciting changes with the continuity. I mentioned Keith Gilmore on the defensive side of the ball, 30 years coaching veteran. He did some great things throughout his career. He's developed first-round draft picks. And again, I think, you know, across the board, I couldn't be more pleased with the staff and the makeup and the direction that we're going, and it just continues to build the momentum across the board. I think I've covered, Mike Birch, you could probably correct me if I've missed anybody. I think I've covered everybody. Good. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions as it relates to the staff.
Brian, up to the left here. Who do you envision calling plays offensively between Mike's role and then what you do, obviously?
I think that's something that we're still kind of working through at this point. I don't think we've made a definitive decision. You know, we're still in the process of, you know, really working through the offense and making any improvements to it. So that's not really on the priority list. We'll get to that. I think we want to get through the spring before we make any, you know, final decisions on that.
How much of a challenge has it been overhauling so much of your staff in such a short period of time?
Quite frankly, when you have the resources that we have here at Notre Dame, and when I say that, I mean what Jack Swarbrick has provided me as the head coach in terms of resources, it's been pretty easy. You know, we have been provided resources that allow us to attract anybody in the country here, as well as it's Notre Dame. And you're getting a chance to coach at, you know, one of the great places in college football. So from that standpoint, a lot of it has been really on Chad Klunder, our associate athletic director, because he's had to work so much on, you know, the HR process. But when it comes to candidates and then vetting those candidates, it's been pretty easy.
I guess what I was getting at is you've got a whole operation in place that goes 12 months, and then when you have so much changeover, I mean, does that get set back at all, or does your timeline change at all?
Yeah, we changed our spring practice. We were going to start this week, but so we bumped it back to accommodate getting the staff settled in. And then, you know, maybe a little bit in recruiting relative to not having as much manpower on hand. Megan Witt moved on. She's going to be looking for a job. She was our coordinator in recruiting. She's moving on to another position. Maybe a little bit there, but nothing that we can't overcome. So if you said that I could put together the staff that I've been able to put together under these circumstances, and you would have to push back spring ball a little bit, and you'd have to put a little bit more on the other coaches in recruiting to put this staff together, I said I would take it any day.
Coach, you have position groups listed for Keith Gilmore and Todd Light and Mike Elston. What will Brian Van Gorder's position group be? He's the defensive coordinator, but will he be kind of like the floater guy?
Yeah, Brian will definitely float. I'm sure he'll spend quite a bit of time in the back end of the defense. You know, he'll spend some time back with the safeties. So, you know, I think that that's something that we talked about. But, you know, he's responsible for, you know, all the positions. But I would think that his plan right now is to spend some more time in the back end.
You lost some top recruiters in the prime areas such as Florida, Texas, California. Have you delegated as to who's going to be responsible for what territories?
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't think we'll miss a beat. Matter of fact, we feel like we'll be stronger. You know, I think Autry Denson will have Florida. He'll be assisted in there with some other coaches, but he'll have a strong area in South Florida. I think Mike Sanford's going to have a large part of Texas. He's had some great success in Texas before. So those two, in those two particular areas, two of our new hires will have those two geographical areas.
And how about California?
Mike will have California as well.
Mike Sanford?
Yes.
Will you have Mike Denbrock?
Yeah, Mike
too
will
as
be
well?
involved. Mike will be more involved this year in some of the geographical areas as well.
And how about Todd Light? He's been a little bit everywhere.
Yeah, Todd's going to be in those geographical areas as well. So we're kind of matching them up in those same areas. So Texas, Florida, he'll have responsibilities in those areas as well.
Okay. Will Mike Elston have his usual areas there in the Midwest and then the
Yes.
Atlantic border?
Yes, sir. Yep, that's correct.
And how much of the support staff with Coach Elliott and others will you have involved in recruiting? They can make calls, but they can't go on visits, correct?
That's correct. They can be on campus. They can make calls. You know, obviously, they're going to be making sure that on a day-to-day basis that the process is moving seamlessly. You know, sometimes the recruiting evaluation system where they can't, you know, gets backed up. They're going to make sure it gets pushed along. They can't sit there and evaluate, but they can make sure, you know, that coaches are getting their jobs done relative to, you know, moving the process along. So we just have more resources to make sure that the process is moving quickly.
And how many, do you anticipate any more hirings in support staff? And
Yeah, we're going to hire.
How many?
Yeah, we're going to hire 3 more analysts, one on offense, one on defense, and one on special teams. It's going through HR right now.
And what are their roles going to be?
It'll be more of a oversight, quality control. They'll have some responsibilities as it relates to meetings, and they'll assist position coaches, as well as they may have some weekly game plan specialty situations where they may be responsible for some specifics, maybe you know, some short yardage or some, you know, third down responsibilities. But they'll have, we'll add, the offense and defense in particular are veteran coaches. So they're going to add some brain power to the room, and we'll rely on their experience to add some veteran coaches who bring a lot of experience, and we'll call on them to assist.
They just can't help or work on the field.
Yeah, they can't be coaching on the field. They can assist in meetings. They can be part of film study. They can be given a specific responsibility of film breakdown. Hey, you're responsible for, you know, all the third down and long fronts or all the blitzes in the red zone. So they can have a particular responsibility in oversight.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, here in the middle, we often hear about athletic directors having a list of head coaching candidates in the front drawer. Does a head coach have a list of assistant coaching candidates that you can turn to immediately?
Yeah, I think so. I think in this instance, you know, there's probably a group of guys that you know I'm familiar with, but we reached outside that group as well. Especially when you have guys that have you know, a background with Notre Dame, you're going to look at that list as well. But I think you also have to look at those that come highly regarded by your peers as well. And so I'm talking to, you know, fellow head coaches. You know, you're talking to, you know, your own agent, you know, who wants the best for you so he can still get paid every year too, who has a list out there that he's, you know, looking at as maybe the next head coach. So, you know, you're using a lot of resources, you know, your own tree. You're listening to other assistant coaches on your staff that have, you know, contacts from their time. And you're just, you're putting all those together to find the right fits.
Kind of tying in with what you said there, I know that you and Chip Kelly know each other well. What was he able to tell you about Todd Light that allowed you to look past his relative inexperience as an assistant coach?
Just his ability to command the respect of the players that he's coached. And once you have the ability to stand in front of the room and command the respect of the group that you have, then that takes away the inexperience portion of your resume. Because you gain that, right? You gain that comfort level through time. He had that right away, and I think that goes to his long experience in the NFL, the confidence that he has in his own ability to communicate. And so I think a long career, a lot of success. He's not used to not being successful, and you can tell when he walks into the room that immediately he has that. It makes up for any shortness that he may have in a resume.
And when you started this search process, where was Mike Sanford on your radar? And if he already was on your radar, I mean, how were you familiar with him? Or who turned your attention toward him?
I was impressed with him going back at Stanford and just knew where he was. But we had a very short list. And he was on the top of it from the very beginning. So we went after him hard right away and knew it was not going to be easy for him to leave a very good situation. But you know, we felt like we had a situation here that was going to be a great one for him, but he was our number one candidate from the very beginning.
Did you speak to his dad about him?
Well, you know, you got to recruit in this business, and so, you know, I flew to Utah and met, home visited, and I guess the home visit went pretty good. Met Dad, met Mom, met the family, and went pretty good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, moving forward, is this still your offense? Are you inviting change by bringing somebody like Mike Sanford in? How do you kind of frame that, what you're doing?
Well, we're not going to change anything relative to, you know, verbiage, nomenclature. The structure is still there, but we're always looking for improvements. We're always looking for ways to run our offense more efficiently, and it still should be centered around the players first and the plays second. So whatever best fits the players over the particular plays. And so, you know, we're not bringing in a new offensive structure relative to terminology. What we're doing is we're bringing in more ideas, and you know, really, you know, Mike Denbrock will oversee that, and we'll put in what we think can make us more efficient, more dynamic, and at the end of the day, be a better offense than we were last year.
When you have this change in structure and some new people, do you look at this as an opportunity to change how involved you are in the quarterback, either more or less, and same with managing the offense? Does your role change significantly?
Look, I think more than anything else, you know, the structure of putting the offense together with Mike Denbrock and Mike Sanford, it's It's the trust in them for them to run this offense and get it running to the level that it needs to be run. And so ultimately, my trust is in them to run the offense at the level that I believe it can be run. And so I have no problem not being involved in it. So the ultimate goal here is we're all involved in it at this point. I was asked the question earlier, where do you see your role as a play caller? I think we're still in that process of figuring it out right now. I just want to be part of the solution. And I don't have to be the play caller. I don't have to be the quarterback coach. I've hired people to do all those jobs. And if it means at the end of the day, I don't have to be involved in that, but that puts us in a better position, I'm 100% okay with that.
You mentioned, you know, some of the benefits you thought of having more of a staff that had more ND on its resume with Autry and Ron and all those guys. It's not only ND players, it's big name ND players. Did that factor in at all, that they were not only Notre Dame players but former stars, most of them?
It does get your attention, I will tell you. I mean, you know, you look at Todd Light and you look at his resume, a national championship here. Look, he goes into a home and he's recruiting somebody. First of all, when you get a chance to talk to him, I mean, he's just, first of all, he's a great person. Take away the football. He's a great family man. He's a great person. So if a mom and dad is looking at Todd Light and said, well, if my son can be like him, forget about the football, we've already won. And you'll find that across the board with Autry Denson as well. But then he's won a national championship here. He's gotten his degree. He's paid back his scholarship here. He's given back. He's won a Super Bowl ring. I mean, and you're recruiting to Notre Dame? I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff. So, yeah, that gets your attention. And then you go to Autry Denson, all-time leading rusher from South Florida, who's got a great spiritual base, great family. All those things are very compelling. Not to mention Maurice and Ron, they're good people. I want to be around good people.
Do you know yet where these good people will be coaching the spring game?
Yeah, we're going to be right here at LeBar. Yep.
Like rent temporary stands?
Yeah, we're going to bring in, we're in the process of bidding out temporary seating right now. We've got a couple of companies that I think we're involved in right now and you know, putting together bids for that. So we'll have temporary seating in there. And so we're in that process right now. But we will be playing the spring game. It will be at LeBar. We don't know whether we'll have a partner for that relative to NBC. That's still being negotiated right now, but the game is on. We're playing it. You guys are invited. If you'd like to show up, we'll be there.
Coach in the middle. For the better part of 10 years, Coach Elston's been your defensive line coach. Just wondering what went into, aside from him being an ex-linebacker, what went into that move in pursuing a defensive line coach such as Coach Gilmore when you had one that you trusted so much?
You know, I think a little bit of everything. You know, there are a lot of pieces there. I think, you know, Coach Van Gorder wanting to float a little bit away from the linebackers and having Mike, who has experience there at the position. That's one. Two, I think professional development for Coach Elston. I think at the linebacker position gets him involved in the passing game, which is great for him. You know, so I think a little bit for Coach Van Gorder, so he can be a little bit more flexible and moving around. I think a little bit for Coach Elston. And then with a lot of young players, we wanted somebody that is a great mentor, not that Coach Elston isn't, but somebody that fit that bill in Coach Gilmore, who's a great technician and you know, has got 30 years of D-line experience. So I think it's a little bit of all those things.
You mentioned Coach Booker remaining with the tight ends. Is he the special teams coordinator as well at this point going into the season?
Yes, he'll have special teams. He'll also have an analyst with him. He'll also have help from Coach Elliott. Will be one of his responsibilities, as well as all of the coaches on the staff will be involved as well.
Is part of that the pending analyst and Coach Elliott to allow the other? I know in the past you've had coaches separate. For instance, formerly Bob Diaco worked with punters. Is having more people involved that aren't full-time staff that can aid special teams to free up your coaches for their
Yeah,
positions?
and those analysts will be full-time positions, so those will be they'll be here full-time and have a full-time responsibility. What it does, I think it's going to allow us to be even more detailed, even more, fine-tuning some of the things that we're doing. Just like I said, it gives us more experience and more staff.
Brian, you've lost coaches before, but is it worth it all that in a year when you mentioned so much momentum going, you lost 2 guys who left for lateral positions?
Yeah, well, we didn't lose them because of, any reasons that have to do with finances or, not providing them with the opportunities necessary for them to be successful. So people leave for reasons, and you'd have to ask them for that. All I know is it has provided me and Notre Dame with the kind of staff that I couldn't be more pleased with. And, sometimes those things happen for reasons, and it's opened up a door for us that we could have never opened unless those things happened. So, call it what you want, but it allowed us to bring in 2 all-time greats from Notre Dame, and then kind of a domino effect that really put together an incredible staff, one that I'm so excited about.
And you have a history with coordinators of leaning towards people that you know, people that you've worked with before. What was it about Mike Sanford that led you to go away from that? And did you at all consider staying with somebody you had a history with?
I was committed, and Mike Denbrock and I had a long conversation about this, and we agreed at the end that what we were looking for was somebody that could turn the room upside down. We didn't want somebody to be equal. We wanted somebody that was going to turn that room upside down, that was that good. We weren't going to settle for somebody that was on the same plane. We wanted somebody that was going to challenge us on a day-to-day basis, and Mike does that. And so that essentially was what we were looking for. Mike and I Denbrock had a number of conversations. Do we go this direction? Do we go this direction? And then as we got a chance to really think about it, we've been at it a long time, the both of us. And I think we came to the agreement, we're going to get somebody in here that is going to keep us on our toes and is going to bring that room up to a level that is going to create such synergy and energy on a day-to-day basis that's going to make everybody better. Yeah.
Any indication of how many fans you guys would be able to accommodate for the Blue Gold game?
If you're there, that's all we need. And if we get one, put us on TV, we'll be good to go. We're hoping 2,500, 3,000 is kind of what the number we're throwing around. I don't know, Chad is working on it right now. Does that sound fair? Is that a little high? Is that low?
That's close, but it won't be general admission. We'll take that on probably
Invite only. You're in trouble now. Invite only.
And also, you talked about Father Ted in the beginning.
Yeah.
Could you share a story or two of your relationship with him and how much he meant to you?
Well, I'll share really the first year here where I got a chance to spend some time with him and talk football. You can imagine, he could have talked about Lou, he could have talked about Era, but he wanted to talk about, because he saw Kelly, and then he thought Kelly, and he said, you must be Irish. I want to talk about Leahy. So I got a chance to learn about Frank Leahy. And of course, at that time, I mean, I was up to here just trying to find my way around campus. And just hearing about Frank Leahy and his relationship with Frank Leahy was pretty extraordinary. And then fast forwarding to current, we got back to current topics in college football, and it was interesting. He finished it off by saying, Coach, I don't follow the game, and I don't see quite as well as I used to, but I still know that speed wins. So for all that he was involved in, he still knew enough about the game to talk about speed in the game. And I just thought it was, so insightful for somebody at that age to, at 92, to say, Coach, keep recruiting speed.
Brian, over here. Mike Sanford's the first OC you've hired who you haven't previously worked with. I know you've talked about, turning the room upside down and him being bright, but when did those discussions start with Coach Denbrock about bringing in this new voice that neither of you guys had previously worked with?
During the process of hiring. Yeah, during the process. Mike is central to all this because he's overseeing the offense, so he has to be, part of this. He has to be, bought into what we're trying to achieve on offense, and Mike always is. And it can't be just being a good soldier. That's not what this is about. This is being, part of what we want to achieve on offense. And Mike's more than that. He's not you can't minimize what he does on a day-to-day basis by calling him a good soldier. He's part of what we're trying to achieve offensively, and that is be the best offense, the most dynamic offense. So those conversations took place during the process. And then, just putting together that consistency. So when we recruited Mike Sanford, we could be clear in everybody's roles. Because what you can't do is come in and say, Mike, you're doing this, and then you get here, and he's doing something totally different.
What sort of changed from, this year's discussion about the offense to, last year or a couple of years ago with, maybe different offensive coordinators about bringing in that new voice?
Well, and Mike will talk about this. The first thing I talked to Mike Sanford about was the quarterback. I mean, his first job here, job number one, is developing our quarterback situation. So it started there, and it kind of got into, the run game, and we talked in great length about the run game. And as we talked about the run game, then we got into the passing game. So this conversation started as me thinking about a quarterback coach. And then it evolved into, wow, we got more here than just a guy that coaches the quarterbacks. We got something much more here. And as we talked about the run game and the pass game and coordinating the run and pass game, it fit with what my philosophy is. And so there's not, I think Eric asked, what's the difference here? There's not a big difference because we come from the same philosophical background relative to how we want it done. We just want to be more efficient and more effective.
Can I sneak in an injury update question?
Yeah, absolutely. Lou, I'm disappointed. All right, Eric, I'm disappointed in you.
Anything?
What's going on? You're slipping. Too much basketball.
Anything new on Jarrett, Nicky, Joe, Jerron?
All right, let's go slow down for me. Jarrett Grace, looking great. Really looking great in workouts. Matter of fact, we had a morning workout where I showed some clips, and he beat Jalen Smith in a couple of cone drills. Next.
Nicky?
Nicky Barati, yeah, he's going to go, you know. He's doing everything. He's in the weight room, full clearance.
So he would be part of the safety rotation in
Yes,
spring
he
practice,
would.
you'd expect?
Absolutely.
Joe and Jerron, I know you said they're probably out for spring practice, but anything new on their injuries?
Joe's making progress, moving straight ahead, straight lines, starting to move a little bit. Jerron won't get over the hump until we remove those screws. You know, he's got those screws that, you know, when you have that Liz Frank, they start to protrude a little bit. So he's going to have to get those screws out. We'll probably do those after break, and then I think you'll see some progress. But nothing that we're concerned about.
Is his recovery kind of on the same timetable, maybe comparatively to Braxton Cave a couple years ago?
It is.
Okay.
It sure is.
I don't think I'm forgetting anyone else injury-wise.
No, I think you've hit them all, as far as I remember. Unless you guys got any. Is that
Coach,
it?
Yeah, real quick. A lot of the talk and the emphasis on the 4 coaches you're bringing in, but how important is it for the other 5 coaches to be on board with the guys that are bringing in to really make the staff just kind of hit the ground running?
Listen, this is all about, you know, everybody rowing in the right direction, everybody here for the same reasons. I think the continuity piece is that, you know, they know where this wants to, where we want this to go, and the foundation here is rock solid, and they have been put in a position really to be kind of supported with the new staff members to continue to do their job. So I think they feel immediately like Coach went out and complimented what we already have here in place. So it's been a seamless transition. I know I've gotten great feedback from everybody on the staff that they really enjoy where we are at this point.
And then the last time you lost 3 coaches and then had some moving around was before the 2012 season. What does it do for players when there's the new voices, even if it's like the linebackers? It's a guy they know, but it's a new guy. What does that do for players? Does it kind of energize them? Maybe guys that are not playing say, hey, here's a chance for me to make a fresh impression. What does it do for your team when you have the kind of makeover of the staff that you've had?
I really believe that any business organization, that the blending of change and continuity is a positive thing. And, you know, I know that there's a great energy, there's a great sense of morale. We're seeing it in our workouts, we're seeing it, you know, on a day-to-day basis. But listen, that's only one component. If you didn't hire really good coaches, teachers, then that's short-lived, right? That energy ends if you don't have great coaches. We've put together an incredible staff that is only going to get this thing moving quicker and quicker. So I think that's the real key here.
All right, thanks everybody. If we can.